What is this? It's a goddamn zombie tiger. That's crossing the line.
Army of the Dead. Following a zombie outbreak in Las Vegas, a group of mercenaries take the ultimate gamble, venturing into the quarantine zone to pull off the greatest heist ever created. Written and directed by Zack Snyder, co-screenplayed by Shay Hatton and Joby Harold, produced and distributed by The Stone Quarry and Netflix. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this review, there is going to be a lot to unpack. As of me doing this video, I don't actually know what the title of my video will be. I know that I'm reviewing, talking spoilers, and also I will be explaining my kind of time loop theory as to what could be happening within the Army of the Dead, within its universe. And as I go along, I will reference to the cast that is in the film. And also I'll have the cast within my description as well, so that people can get a gist of who is in the movie. But without further ado, let's jump into Army of the Dead. Now, the first thing I've got to say with Army of the Dead is that I think that the prologue to this movie is really, really good. It establishes the universe that we are in, the kind of mania and hysteria that has taken over Vegas with this outbreak. And one thing that I found quite hilarious was that zombie getting shot into 15 trillion pieces by that machine gun. And the reason why I find it particularly funny is that critics of Snyder's work have been saying for the longest time, oh, why is it that Snyder's work, why is it so dull? Why is it so bleak, the colours, and there's this dark overlay on his films, the contrast. And I think with Snyder, I think he purposely done that as a major fuck you to all the people that kind of downplay his movies because of the contrast. And it's basically him saying, well, you guys have wanted colour for me, here it is. Watch this zombie get shot into 15 billion different pieces and enjoy it. And I think it's even particularly funny that he's got the titles in like this very standout and pink colour as well. I also love the fact that Vegas has been quarantined off with shipping containers. It seems like a quick route as to what people would do. Within that prologue, that family, she finds the girl and then just gets squashed. And I think with Snyder, he's great with subverting your expectations mostly all the time, and having that happen to the mother and the daughter kind of establishes that within this universe nobody's going to be safe. And in this film you had Snyder playing around with his cinematography, him using 8K red cameras and using Japanese Dream Canon lenses. And I think after seeing the response from the film, a lot of people said, well, it gives this very nauseating feeling because Snyder's playing around with the shallow of depth within his shots. It's this focus and blur, but you got this combination of 8K with a Canon. It's like, but for me in particular, it never was like a hindrance. And I think it's something really like cool to see a director playing around with that level of cinematography, and how can it be utilized to heighten the story. And I think this style of cinematography, of doing this very shallow depth kind of thing, I think it will, the way I look at it anyway, if I was to use that style, I would definitely use it within like psychological horrors, and I think he used it because we know that he's playing around with the element of different timelines and time loops, which is going to be more that we will be getting into near near the middle and at the end of the video as well. Let's take a moment to talk about somebody that Snyder fans are very familiar with, and that's with Tom Hulkenberg, aka Junkie XL. I mean, this man at the moment is on a hat trick. He's done Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's done Godzilla vs. Kong, and he's done now Army of the Dead. And I absolutely love the track of Battle Hallway. Absolutely kick-ass soundtrack. The Scott and Kate track is also really good as well. I mean, all of them are quite good. The Athena and Zeus track, that's good as well. So they all really did help with the tone of Army of the Dead. With most reviews that you guys have probably seen, you've probably seen maybe at the beginning of the video, people talk about Dave Bautista, and we will get to him. But I want to pay special tribute to Samantha Wynn as Chambers. I mean, her sequence, her fight choreography in the going from the kitchen diner into the hallway. I mean, come on. I mean, how can you not love that? That was an absolutely spellbinding scene. And she left no stone unturned. She was badass. She was kick-ass. One of the coolest characters within the story. Teammates went and done the dirty on her. And in particular, what I found within that scene, it was just such a layered scene of a great performance with great cinematography and with the brilliance of Junkie XL. Now, here's the thing. Because they're both brilliant, I don't really know whose idea was this, but there's a moment, it's a quick moment, but there's a moment where Chambers, she leans back to shoot a zombie, and as she's leaning back, the sound of the track kind of drops. It goes whoom, like that as she's going back. Now, I don't know whether that's Junkie sinking that into the film for that particular moment, or is that Snyder thinking about the track. Well, either way, they done a great moment there, and I absolutely love Chambers as a character. And I think possibly she could come back with a theory that I have for her character. And about that particular scene, we're going to talk more about that within the spoiler section. Richard Citrone, who played Zeus, I mean, in his previous work, from what I understand, he was Ben Affleck's stunt double in Zack Snyder's Justice League and Batman v Superman. This guy, he's been around. You know, if I was looking at his IMDb filmography, and this guy's got 72 credits in stunts. And turns out he can act, because Zeus as a character, he doesn't have dialogue, and he you know, no dialogue, yet he can portray all of the emotions that Zeus is feeling. And you got to tip your hat to that. And I'm a firm believer of reacting is just as good as acting. Knowing your character when you don't say lines is just important when you say dialogue. I mean, every actor should understand that. Richard Citrone brings that to this portrayal of Zeus. Now, let's now talk about Dave Bautista, our main build actor within Army of the Dead. And I watched Blade Runner 2049, and I think he done an absolutely great job there. And he really did have a minuscule role there. I think I then watched his short film, which was his kind of like origin story, and he was great in that as well. Also heard great things of him on Hotel Artemis as well. And you can see there's a lot more to him. And what I like about Bautista is you can see that he's got this nuanced calmness to him. You know he can rip your head up within a second, but there's this nice kind of calm demeanor about him. And I think that aura about him is what gives him that nature to play around with his dialogue in the way he acts and interacts with people. And I think, granted, the reason why we see him bring a good performance is because I think that the script allows him to dive deep within these emotions. I'm a firm believer that if a film is rated R, I feel like even from a writing standpoint, there's more to exploring in the sense of character's backstory, and you can make this character as flawed as you need them to be. And granted, what happens to his wife, you know that that's a very deeply emotional thing to portray on screen. You can't you can't fake that because of how deep that emotion runs, and because the emotion is so deep, Ella Purnell does a great job of showing that conflict and dealing with that turmoil and what it's ultimately done to the relationship between Scott and Kate, and how much it's galvanized their father and daughter relationship. And within Army of the Dead, Matthias Schweighöfer, he is prolific with his comedic timing, and he plays off very well with his level of camaraderie with Vanderho, played by Amari Hardwick. And you saw this progression throughout the entire film of them getting to know one another. And they were cool characters. Entire ensemble cast is brilliant. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to talk about spoilers very in-depthly now. So to anyone that hasn't seen the film, sadly, you're not going to be able to see my rating, but go watch the film, come back, do what you need to, and you will then definitively know what I think wholesomely of the film. Now, the other day, I had a 1 hour and 45-minute conversation about Army of the Dead. Because I got to be honest, the first time I watched this film, it made me feel a certain type of way, right? And my rating was a 6.5. I thought it was good, but it definitely had its flaws, right? But then rewatching the film, I was like, you know what? There's definitely a lot more to Army of the Dead. But one thing that definitely has not changed is the character development of Geeta. This woman's decision making and her motives within this film is so unbelievably frustrating. What frustrates me the most is this character was put as this co-subplot to the main story. And I just think with this character, the decisions are just so bad, and I could have really done with having this character not be there. Now, my problems with her motivations is that she is about to leave the quarantine zone, right? And then she turns to Kate and she says, if we go to Burtstow, which is this place, right, and we go there in this quarantine zone, basically she's insinuating that if she goes there, then she'll never be able to leave, kind of thing, right? So then she thinks to herself, her idea is if I go inside the quarantine zone, if I go back inside Vegas and I take the Coyote Lily and I crack the safe, then if I get $5,000, then I can bail my way out and I can go to a different area and it doesn't have to be Burtstow. Now, I just don't like it. There's many people that have felt the same way. Now, it's the fact that she leaves her kids, and it's not even like signaled that this character has any training or she knows her way about within the strip, within that quarantine zone, within the Olympus area, like she knows her way around, right? If that was the case, then I would have said, right, do what you want to do. And also, it's the fact that within the script, it's been insane that Birtstone is this bad place, but we never get to see Birtstone. If humanity is completely just terrible, crime rates are through the roof at this camp, at this station, then it will signal to the audience that, okay, this decision, it can be unlikable, but we understand where she's coming from. And the thing is, there was no guarantee that she was going to come back, right? And then Kate is like, well, I got to go, right? I got to go in and save her, right? And one of the things that Geeta says to Kate is, if I go in and then absolutely look after the kids, Kate goes in there, who's looking after the kids? And I'm like, I want to like these characters within the script. I'm like, that is just completely taking me off guard. And I don't know how to feel about it. Yeah, just I absolutely just don't know how to feel about that writing. Now, another layer that then annoyed me is that this character, Bert Cummings, we know he's established, he's the arsehole played by Theo Rossi. Now, then when rethinking back on this moment, and then Lily serves up Bert as the sacrifice to the alphas, then it's portrayed to the audience that this guy is an ultimate piece of shit. Not only is he creepy, he's done horrific things to women within the quarantine camp, right? And he's raped women. So then it just makes me feel like, it didn't makes me feel, well then if only her knew and there's other people that know what he's done, then there's got to be other pieces of shit that are within this camp, and the children are just there amongst whatever else could be there. And I'm like I can't get behind it. That was the moment I was like, the writing definitely could have been done better for the development of that. And another thing as well to add is, I didn't feel the relation between Geeta and Kate. And a lot of people have complained within the second act that there's this downtime and the film loses its pacing and so on and so forth. I don't really think that's the case. And I think what needed to happen, because we have the crossing the crossroads between Kate and Scott coming to this conclusion of what they're going to do and how are they going to rekindle their relationship when they're trying to reboot the casino. And all of that dialogue makes complete sense to me. But what I think should have happened before that moment was have a scene initially, have a scene when Kate's within the quarantine zone. She's now volunteer at this place. Yeah, she's not getting, maybe it's a little get together with fire and she doesn't want to be a part of the drink up in the group, and she's away and she's thinking to herself, and then Geeta comes along. They have a heart to heart, and then Geeta basically welcomes her into her life, right? And because within the dialogue, what Kate's saying is, well, you've never been there for me, right? And I don't blame you for what you've done to my mom. You got cold feet and you just never... I mean, Scott's this guy that doesn't want to face his problems head on, right? And that dialogue of, well, every time I look at you, I see her, that was great. But just to have that kind of thread through with a flashback to a first-person ideology, doubling down on how flawed Kate is, and having that heart-to-heart with Geeta, first initially meeting her for the first time, and then Geeta takes her under her wing and looks after her, and then you understand their rapport, their relationship. I think that then you can dig it. And I know I'm talking ferociously about Geeta, but I think what could have been done is possibly I mean, I think I personally feel like Guy as a character should have been taken away, and I feel like what should have happened is Kate was going to get to a point where she was going to tell the authorities about what Bert was doing, and then what happens is that because Kate's going to let people know about what he's done to women in the quarantine camp, then Bert, what he does is he takes her, right, and throws her into the into Olympus, into Vegas, where all the alphas are there and everything. I just think that is a better conflict to having Geeta, because the moment that Geeta goes into Olympus, who's looking after the kids? This is supposedly a main character that I should care about, and is joined as a subplot to the $200 million heist. What do you want me? How do you want me to feel? I love you, Snyder, and I always will. But how are you meant to make me feel? Let's now talk about the fight scene with Chambers, the kitchen battle hallway sequence. Right, great scene. Now, with Snyder, he has this. He always is a person that solely believes that showing somebody is better than telling them. He's a visual director. Now, what's now happened is that, and a lot of people have said, when Chambers went through the glass, yeah, why did nobody help Chambers, right? And the thing is, in this film, as much as, because audiences have got imposter syndrome, they're thinking that Scott is this hero. He's not, right? And even in the beginning of the film, he says, when he's talking with Maria when they're at the garage, and he says, you're going to be getting 50 million, I get 15 million, Vanderholt will get 15 million. Basically, anyone that is not family will get a lesser cut than us, right? So when I watched it the first time, I was thinking, why did he not do anything, right? But then when I rewatched the film again, I then realised, oh, he just practically doesn't give a shit about anyone. So, so there you have it. But again, I just feel like with that scene, and the reason why discrepancy with the way it's directed, because when Chambers is first initially fighting the zombies, we see that she gallops past them. We know that the shamblers are slow and you can literally run past them, right? And when Chambers jumps through that glass, which is a nice homage and tribute to the second raid, and then she lands in the hallway, there's literally a period where you're looking at the shot and you can see there's like these gaps that she can literally get up and sprint through. And the thing is, with its direction, it doesn't show you that she landed and then maybe a piece of glass got stuck in the back of her leg and it's impelled her and she can't run, right? She literally could get up and sprint, and there's like these 2-second windows where you'd be thinking, if that was you in that situation, you'd be out of it, right? And again, like I say, Snyder is a visual storyteller, and we know that with Guzman as a character, he's this kind of street level guy, right? And he's got his Reddit, he's got his YouTube, he's kind of like this kind of internet personality, so to say. And there is this subtle detail that Snyder shows, and it shows that he's not actually able to shoot anyone with the gun. He shoots people at like this angle. And I'm no gun connoisseur of anything, right? I just know that mainly most of the time I've seen people aim a gun like that straight on, right? And basically, I feel like Snyder's trying to insinuate to us like this guy was a big internet personality, but when shit hits the fan and shit gets real, he can't really do anything, right? Now, that's wishful thinking for the way that I'm looking at Zack's direction. That's me wanting to like it. But as to the mechanics, as to what would happen in real life, with that scene. It's just like it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, Guzman shoots one zombie, right? And we understand that you have to shoot the zombie in the head to kill it. The whole kind of exposition dump on the folklore of the Shamblers and the Alphas and so on and so forth, right? But I think you could have created a better scene where you see Chambers jump through the glass. She goes through the glass. She gets up. She starts sprinting. She sees the window. She's running, right? But then what happens from the opposite side, this direction here, and Alpha jumps through. Rob literally takes her out onto the floor. The Alpha gets up quickly, right? Gets behind Chambers, right? And literally, it's a thing of he's about to bite her, right? And then possibly even Guzman has to make that decision to just kill her because he doesn't want to see her friend turn into a zombie. I just think something like that is something better to play around with, you know? And here's the thing. You could even have the Alpha jump through the window. They know it's an Alpha, and then they start spraying down the Alpha with bullets, right? But every bullet has hit him in the back, and he quickly gets behind Chambers, and they can't get a clean shot on him. I just think something like that is something cooler to experiment with. I want to now defend the prologue because I've seen people jump on that and attack it. Now, with the prologue all itself makes sense, right? And the one common courtesy that people, or the discrepancy they have with it, is that why is there this delay with the soldier? And why is he taking so long to, you know, the whole thing between relaying information between each other and so on and so forth, right? So in the beginning conversation between the two of them, basically you have one guy that believes that in this payload, in this container, that this is the Holy Grail. So this is something omnipotent of power, right? And the other one then believes that it's as much as an artifact that's going to be placed in a museum. That's what he thinks, right? And the other one to the right, he just thinks that the whole thing with Area 51 is just like all a complete hoax, right? So when the container then flips off, and then he's not expecting anything to come out of it, so he's just thinking, and then the woman tells him, "Oh, you get out of there, blah blah blah." But he does tell the guy to leave. And another thing you have to bear in mind is that the army, they can't have any witnesses see what the payload is. That's why they have to protect it. They can't have anyone, John, Jeff and Henry, see what's in the payload, and before you know it, they go and cycle it off to every social media platform and every tabloid that's out there. You know, it's not a very good look for the army, is it? Right? And your cover's blown. So that's why they get on this to recover what is in there. They just didn't know it was a fucking genetically modified superhuman alien. Superhuman zombie alien fucking everyone's shit up, right? And then people say, well, why did they not just get in the car and drive away with the two main characters and the army people in the prologue? Why did they? I mean, the guy looked like he was in no position to run. He was obviously hurt. And then the one part of this prologue that I looked, I was like, didn't need to be there, was when one of them fall down and they crack a joke and then pick him up. Like, I mean, like, no, you just saw the zombie. You know, you just saw a big shit house zombie fuck everyone up. I mean, you wouldn't be exactly cracking a joke at that. I just thought tonally they were like, okay. And the choice to have slow motion during had slow motion, knowing that prior to that the countdown has now changed from 48 hours to like an hour and 30 minutes, and then we get a whole slow-mo scene within the vault. Didn't need to be there. But again, you know, whatever. Not for me. I also feel like Maria's death was out of place within the story as well. And if it was anyone that should have got her neck snapped, it should have been Gita, right? It would have been a very cathartic death for me to enjoy, because that woman is literally a piece of dog doo-doo on the floor. Even like, because it's like if Scott bumps into Gita, right, and they can have that moment of Batista's like we've gone through all this trouble to find you, and it was worth it, kind of thing, and thank you for being there for my daughter when I wasn't there, basically, right? So they can have that friendship sentimental moment, and then boom, before you know it, Alpha's there, snaps in there, and then that whole scene plays out again the way it plays out. I just didn't. I mean, that annoyed. Like, I mean, it must be because I love Maria so much. It's not so much a thing. I just was like, man, that more, if anything, that moment just broke my heart. Now, here is ultimately the real mindfuck of it all with Army of the Dead. Snyder has done exactly what he done with the development of his characters with Batman versus Superman, right? So really, what's happened is that Scott is the villain. Zeus is the hero. Now, you're probably now thinking to yourself, is this man insane? Are you a menace to society, right? Here's the thing. Scott believes in his mind that if he is able to pull off this heist and get this money, then his life will change, right? And he'll be able to give the money to Kate, and she'll be able to do the things that she wants to do in her life, right? But that's not the point. The point of the film is really what she needs and what she wants is to rekindle that love and that relationship between herself and her dad. On the flip side, you have Zeus, who wholeheartedly cares about this zombie utopia that he has created. There's moments where he gets upset when his fellow alphas die. Like there's the whole moment when Guzman blows up and the whole casinos, the underground, well, the lobby's basically engulfed in flames. And there's this moment where he goes to the window and he's like, he takes a moment to think to himself, my bedroom just died, bruv. And then you see he's visibly upset when the Queen dies as well. So he has a level of more humanity within himself than Scott does. Now, you're probably thinking, no way, right? Now, if Snyder does this here, this will be the real genius of his work. Now, in the prequel, if we see that Scott is this person that cares about people, about his team, and he's very empathetic and he's very giving, he puts people first before himself, and we see that ultimately he is this wholehearted leader, right? And I think the turning point from him being this person that cares about unity and people, right, and beholding this great trust and faith with everyone, to going to being this jaded anti-hero we get in this film, is I feel like there's like some kind of scandalous film thing going on where people are saying Scott's a bad person for what he done to his wife. It's kind of insinuated with the conversation between himself and Kate during the second act when they're rebooting the casino. So that was the turning point, right? And he started, and then he got to the point of, right, I'm going to start thinking about myself. This film is Scott's descent into losing himself. And I think what people will find is in the prequel, you'll see that he's a completely different character in that film, right? Because I went into this film understanding that the glass was always going to be half empty with the backstory of these characters. Because I always knew that there's two other prequels that are coming within this universe of Army of the Dead, right? And on the other side of the coin with Zeus, we'll get to find out how this bioweapon was first created. And I think what will be very interesting in that film will be to see if Zeus is the ultimate asshole in that film. That guy is I'm talking Bryce Walker levels, bruv. Just he's a complete prick, right? That nobody likes, right? And then when he becomes Zeus, he all of a sudden becomes this empathetic, and he realizes the power and the responsibility that he has with the powers that have been bestowed to him. I think that's something interesting to play around with. Might be crazy, but I think it's an interesting concept of storytelling to dive into. There's some great hidden subtext exposition with when we see the fetus and it's blue and it's glowing this blue kind of fluorescent color, to when Snyder uses slow motion to then shoot Zeus in the head, and we see the same fluorescent blue liquid, blue blood flow out of his head. And then that's when, you kind of realize that they're not generic zombies. Because up until that point, I still thought they were kind of generic kind of zombies, really. But when he done that slow motion, and I think that was some of the best tie-in, the fact that Snyder used his slow-mo to portray his hidden subtext exposition in a big moment, I was like, I really enjoyed that. But with every Snyder film, you get some great Easter eggs. We had the Easter egg of Larry Fogg. We had with the way that Chambers is dressed with her red head bandana, that's a nice tribute to Aliens with Private Vasquez. And in that, in Aliens, that character is a badass as well. So some very nice continuity between those two films. And in one scene as well, you can see the Green Lantern symbol background of one of the shots. You obviously, when we get to the vault, you see the Snyder Cut, and the whole concept design of Zeus himself. It was kind of a tribute to somewhat the Batman cowl and the cape and the spear he's walking around with from 300. And also, another cool thing that I don't see a lot of people talk about is that in a few shots, we see Zeus and he's got another Alpha's head on a stick with a helmet on. So that's obviously implying that in the prequel, at some point, he's going to get into some altercation with another Alpha, probably with taking the entire, he has to duke out against another Alpha so that he can take over Olympus. So there's Easter eggs meddled everywhere. And I also liked the nice tribute to Christopher Nolan using this cinematography of using the arc shot around characters. I thought that was nice. So yeah, a lot going on. A lot of Easter eggs to spot. And also to add, I never felt like it was established that with Lily's character, whether or not she was working with the LV enforcement, or was she basically a criminal that was smuggling in people into Vegas without the LV enforcement knowing. I think it is that, but again, the movie didn't really show that to the audience. Now, let's talk about the theory that I have within Army of the Dead. There's a point when they finally are within the casino itself. There's this conversation that's being held between Kate and Lily, where Kate says to Lily that Geeters has to be dead. These things are like, some of them they're like unstoppable, right? And Lily said, you don't know that, because I took a guy in here and he got lost, right? And then after 3 days, he came back out, right? And I feel that that's heavily talking about Vanderhoek, right? And then the next piece of dialogue we get is that when they're there at that base level within the casino, we see that there's blueprints there, right? Again, hinting that there's been teams there before. We get up to the vault, then Vanderhoek has that whole thing of this is all a time loop and it looks like we've been here before, so on and so forth, right? And now what I think has been going on is that when they get to the vault itself, they remember that there is a vault here. Like they probably understand that they understand that there is a vault and it's within Vegas, but because of this time loop, this conundrum that's happening, they forget about their previous life. And then what this time loop is doing, it's sending their subconscious into a different body. And they're remembering where this vault is and they keep coming back to it, right? Now, do you guys remember that in the team up and with the arc shot when Tanaka is breaking down how they're meant to infiltrate the casino, we see that there's a bald-headed geezer there, right? Now, what I think happened was, I think what's happened is Tanaka is the bald guy and he went into the time void that is this vault corridor. He died, right? And then his subconscious was then transmitted and passed over to Tanaka. That's why he remembers the vault. He only remembers going there, right? And he knows the vault's there. He forgets everything prior to being in that corridor, the whole team up thing, he just knows there's a vault there. So there's this repetitive loop of people coming together and they're all different people every time round, right? It sounds, I don't know how much sense that makes, but I think that's what could be happening, right? And a lot of people have stated that within the opening prologue that is actually Omari Hardwick as Zeus. He's got the kind of crew cut, kind of slick back inside haircut. And then people have been drawing the comparison. So who knows? And also, another point that I'm just going to say that could have been established and maybe written better is the character of Martin. Now, people are saying if the whole plot was to just go in there and get a zombie head because it's worth a lot of money, then all you would have needed to do is assemble a couple of people, and that's the whole thing, and then you can just grab the head, in and out, done. You don't need to go get the money is pointless, so to say, right? But I feel like what could have been written and implemented is that basically America is stifled and their law enforcement is practically just at a standstill. It's completely like finished, right? And there's only like a couple of Marines, or there's only a couple of Marine Navy SEALs, what you have, and then the government is then forced to then try to find other people that are like retired, so they can do the work for them, right? And basically Martin going in there with a team is basically cover fire, and he's doing his own little thing in the background with getting that. I feel like having that in there makes a lot more sense for having Martin in that situation. So Guzman, Maria, Scott, and Chambers, all of the team itself, they're just there to cover his ass. But I feel, and I think as well, what person is going to turn up their nose to $200 million if you're being given that opportunity? So yeah, like look, there's a lot going on in this film, and I think it solely boils down to if the prequels are good, then I think that with Army of the Dead and with this whole dynamic between heroes and villains, especially with Scott and Zeus, and we see that in the beginning with that film, Scott really is the protagonist, and Zeus really is the antagonist. And then you watch Army of the Dead over, and then you see how Scott's acting. He's not really acting like a protagonist. And then you see Zeus, who's trying to uplift his utopia of zombies within Olympus. Then it's like, man, like now I get it. And now everything, the world, the folklore, the concept, everything now feels more cohesive, right? And I think this review's been an hour long. Lord. I had to, ladies and gentlemen, I had to get everything off my chest. Well, let's digress. So I'll be giving Army of the Dead a 7 out of 10. First time watching it, it was at a 6.5, right? I think, granted that the prequels do their job in telling a good story, I definitely feel people will come back to Army of the Dead and think, you know what? I was definitely too harsh on this film initially. Right, but again, it's a film that still comes with its faults, and I definitely do not think this is Snyder's best work. And I'm just hoping that these prequels are going to give this film the justice to make it look cohesive, because I really do love the world that Snyder has created, and I really want to see the sequel. So guys, it's been a long one. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Click here if you want to see more videos. Check my description for more content. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.